Okay, so today we're going to talk about the different types of maps and how you use maps. What we use maps for. It's geography. We're going to use a lot of them. Okay, the reason why, if you take a globe, okay, you take this round object, you can't just make it flat. All right, let's say you take a basketball and somebody gives you the basketball, they're like, okay, cut it up and make it flat. That doesn't work because you're going to have to cut all these little things into the ball to make it flat. So you can't take a round surface and just, oh, there you get a square one. Okay, which is the same thing. When we take this globe and we make it flat into a map, there's going to be distortions. We're going to have to stretch it out in order to make it flat. So that's when we're talking about, oh, there's always distortions. On the Canvas page, you will see kind of a funny little thing from the show The West Wing that talks about how there's just distortions, and the different types of maps are all going to cause them. Okay, if you just think the coolest job in the world would be to make maps when you grow up, sure, have at it. Everybody needs a job. That is called a cartographer. So they're going to use all sorts of different models and methods and math stuff to make these maps. So methods for adapting, you have the Great Circle Route. This is just something like if you've ever flown overseas and you take that ball and you're like, oh wait, like, okay, so legitimately, that's not a word, but legitimately when I flew once from Houston over to London, that's not this part of the world, I thought, oh my gosh, we're flying over Greenland. It's so that if the plane crashes, we will crash over Greenland and they can find our bodies. Like, that's what I really truly thought. But really, because the earth is round and you're looking at this flat thing, okay, that's actually the straightest course is to go that way because the earth is actually round. That's what that Great Circle Route is it's just saying because you have this, it's actually not just straight across to go like boom to boom, okay? That's actually longer than to go see, so when you tip the globe, you see, oh look, that's a straight line. Okay, map projections. Again, we're taking it, we're going to distort the distance, the area, the direction, whatever it is. There's three major type map projections, and you're going to need to know these, all right? They are really important. Okay, this is a planar or azimuthal. We're not gonna ever use this in class because realistically, that's too hard to look at. Okay, you look at this map, or if you're looking at it on your own PowerPoint, this is making the United States the center. Okay, you have South America here, here's Antarctica, okay, here's Russia up here, Australia's over the way here. You can't, it's very hard to look at. We as humans, we like things that are pretty. We like nice round corners or square edges, straight lines. That is just like, I can't read it. Okay, this is a cylindrical map. So a cylindrical map is, let's say you have a satellite, it went around the center of the earth and it just took one picture. But what's gonna happen is it's gonna take this top part of the earth, and in order to make it flat, it has to stretch all of that stuff out. Okay, in order to get these nice square edges or corners and nice straight edges, okay, it's got to take everything that's here at the poles and it stretches out. So when you look at this map, you think, oh my gosh, I didn't know Greenland was so huge. Well, it's not so huge, okay? It looks like it's as big as South America, but when in reality, Greenland is actually only about the size of Brazil, but it looks enormous, and that's because it's taken all this stuff and it's spread it out. This is what we call a Mercator projection, and again, it just widens it out. It's nothing wrong with it other than it's, you know, messed up, but it does make things nice and pretty. This is the one that you'll see a lot of times. Then you have a conical. You usually won't see it in this cone shape. Usually what you will see is they'll kind of flatten this out and then they'll round the edges here, because again, nobody wants to look at that. That's not very pretty. And they want to see nice round edges. Hold on, let me find a marker that you can see. Oh, I gotta sorry about that. Okay, so let's see if you can see that one. Okay, see, so you'll take this and then they'll make the nice round edges. So that makes it a whole lot better. So you don't have this pointy and this pointy up here. You just have this round earth. This is a conical projection. It still has some problems with it, but it is a little better than the Mercator projection. Okay, so this is your Robinson. This is what a conical map is. So this is what you used to always see in textbook. This is the Robinson, the round. It's pretty to look at. Oh, globes are round, and look, it's round, so it's got to be right. Well, the problem with this one is you've actually shrunk the stuff at the poles. So the Antarctic Peninsula, which is right here, should be much, much larger and wider, but because it's taken everything that's the poles and it's kind of gone, it doesn't look the way it quite should. But for our purpose, I mean, how often are you looking at the Antarctic Peninsula unless you're going down there? Not very often, but for our purposes, it actually is a pretty good world map. It's easy to measure, easy to look at. This is the Winkel Triple. This is the one that everybody's going to. Oh, the Winkel Triple, which has a funny name, but whatever. This one looks a lot about like the Robinson. The big difference is that, let me go back to the Robinson real quick. Oh, wait, where did it go? Okay, so see how on the Robinson these lines are flat, okay? On the Winkel Triple, they're rounded at the edge. Just barely, but they kind of just go up, kind of like that at the edges. That's kind of the biggest difference where you can see. Whenever you finally come to my room, let's see if I can flip this and show you. I do have a really big Winkel Triple in here. I don't think it lets me flip in the middle of recording. Sorry, I'm just sitting here like touching things. But that is what that map is. And there won't really be a time where like, okay, is this one a Winkel Triple or is it a Robinson? That's more for like if you're in AP or something. Okay, this is the goods interrupted map. This is that you've taken the basketball and you've cut it apart. So yeah, it's really pretty accurate, but it's not nice to look at. We don't want to look at that. If you want to see how far it is from South America to the southern part of Africa, well, you can't do it because somebody just put a hole in your map, all right? Between Europe and America, the Americas like, oh, look, somebody put a big gash in your map. So nobody likes that one because it's just ugly to look at. It's not pleasing to the eyes. Okay, so you learned all this before. This is the parts of a map. You have the title, what's the map about? The legend or key, you always need to include that. When y'all start making your own maps, you're going to have to tell me, oh, this is what this means and this is what that means. And the more detailed your key is, the better it's going to be. The better grade you're going to get on your map quiz. Symbols are icons. The red dot indicates the capital city, okay? The compass rose. You always need to know which direction's north. And I'm telling you right now, north is not always going to be the top of the map, all right? So sometimes there are times where it's just not. But if you know one direction, you know them all. Because remember, if you have north at the top, okay, west is always going to be on this side, east is always going to be on this side, and south is always going to be here at the bottom. The colors, just it helps it to see. Can be elevation, things like that. It can be all sorts. Colors can be all sorts of types of things. Line symbols, the scale, like does 1 inch, does it equal 500 miles? Does it equal 1 mile? What is it? The scale can be different. You don't need to know the difference between small scale map. Small scale and large scale, like when you hear it, it kind of sounds reversed to me, but a small scale map is showing a huge area, whereas a large scale map is showing a smaller area. See, so it kind of like messes it up in my mind, maybe not in yours. Okay, this is the part you're gonna need to know. So we're gonna classify maps: physical, political, thematic, and then there's types of thematic maps. On your first quiz, you're going to have to know the difference between them. All right, I'm going to show you a map and you're going to have to say, oh, that's a flow line map, or that's a political map, or whatever it is. Okay, physical. Physical, I think y'all got. It's to look at the physical features. You want to see a map of mountains, you want to see a map of where the rivers are, the physical features. That's what this map is for. This map is not to show you where the countries are, although it might have countries, but the point of the map, what is the purpose? What's the point of it? All right, think about that whenever you look at it. The point of this map is to see where the major physical features are. It's not to say like, oh, here's Africa. It's to say, oh, here is the, let me find something, the Congo Basin or the Zaire River or the Matumbo Mountains. Hello. Oops. Wait, skipping political. Okay, political map. This is to show you political features, features that, you know, humans have said, hey, this is this country. All right, it still might have physical features, but that's so you can like get your relative location. So if you want to know where Queensland in Australia is, if you're like, oh, well, it's right off the coast of the Coral Sea. The point of this map isn't to show you the Coral Sea, it's to show you the different territories and provinces that are in Australia, okay? This is a political map of Europe, right? So you have the Mediterranean Sea level labeled, but it's to show you, oh, here's the major countries and the major cities that are in Europe, okay? That's what the point is. The point is to show you political features like countries, states, cities, towns, counties. Okay, then we have thematic maps, okay? This is where there's something that we're trying to show you. We're not trying to show you where Australia is or where the provinces are. We're trying to show you information about them, okay? So popular types, climate, population density, vegetation, economic activities, natural resources, there's all sorts of things. We're trying to show you information, okay? So the first of the three types, let me write down the three types so you can keep up. The first of the, I'm trying to find a place where it won't interfere, is qualitative. Qualitative. Okay, this is showing you data or information. Okay, it's trying to show you, this is average precipitation. I don't know if y'all can see that from this video. It's trying to show you annual average precipitation. So you look at, this is Texas, obviously. Okay, the big thing to note here is this the actual shape of Texas? Yes. Are these the actual shapes of the counties and the sizes of the counties in Texas? Yes. So all of that is correct. That's going to be important. All right, but it's trying to say, okay, well, if you are looking for Montgomery County, which is right here, how much rain? Well, if you're in the eastern part of the county, it's this lovely little dark teal color, which is 46 to 50 inches. So it's saying in the eastern part of Montgomery County, you get 46 to 50 inches of rain per year. In the western part, where we are, you get 42 to 46 inches of rain per year, all right? If you're looking for far west Texas, under 14 inches, all right? So it kind of breaks it all down like that. You're saying, oh, okay, you find your county, whatever you're looking for, and you're like, oh, well, this county is, and you find the color that matches it, okay? It's trying to show you that piece of information or that piece of data of, hey, this is what these counties get, okay? The colors are there to represent stuff. It might have stars or symbols or something like that. This is a flow line map, okay? So a flow line map shows you the movement of something. So flow line, okay? Always has arrows, okay? So it's showing you the movement. So this is showing you U.S. foreign population, okay? If you want to see a map of the migration of caribou in Canada, then you would look at a flow line map. They'd say, oh, well, the caribou start here, and then they migrate here, and then they migrate here, and then they migrate back up here, okay? If you want to see Napoleon's march through Europe, right, you could use a flow line map because it's going to say Napoleon starts here, and then he goes down this way, and then he goes up here, and then he goes over here, and then he goes to Russia, and he loses all his people, and so then he goes back. That's a flow line map. It's showing you the movement of people, of things, of history, of whatever it is. If it's got arrows, it's showing you a flow line map. This is a cartogram. All right, so this is a map of the world. All right, so you look at this map of the world and you're like, okay. So this is showing you the map of the countries. Their size is based on their population. What is the biggest country in the world size-wise? It's Russia. Russia is the largest country in the world size-wise. However, on this map, it's not very big. It's this yellow thing that is right here because it's trying to put it in the correct general area and shape-ish, but it's not the right size because Russia has a very small population comparatively. The two countries in the world with the biggest populations are China and India. So on this map, they're going to be the biggest. We have the third largest population in the world, the US, so we're the third biggest, okay? Then you look at other countries, the United Kingdom, France, their populations are much, much smaller than ours. So they are much, much smaller, all right? You think of, okay, a good example would be this country of Bangladesh, okay? This little pinkish country right here. Bangladesh has the 8th largest population in the world. Huge population, 8th largest, but it's about the size of Mississippi. So we have taken this like teeny tiny little country and we've blown it up big on here because they have such a big population. All right, if I wanted to show you, and you can't even see my writing anymore because I should have written it over here. Let's see. Qualitative. Flow line. And cartogram. Okay, so if I wanted to see a map of the countries that have the biggest oil. So I said, okay, what countries have the most oil in the world? Okay, Saudi Arabia comes to your mind. Kuwait has a ton of oil. Kuwait is a tiny little country that's in the Persian Gulf. Saudi Arabia has a lot of oil, okay? And they would be enormous on a cartogram of countries that have oil. The US would be big. Venezuela would be big, okay? Russia would be a pretty decent size, okay? But you think of countries like China. China's a big country, all right? But they would be tiny on that map, on that cartogram, because they don't have very much oil. So a cartogram is representing it by how much of something they have. Canada, the second largest country in the world, okay, is tiny on this map because they don't have a big population. So you're showing it by size, okay? Always think of cartogram like you have to use a cart to carry like the information, like it's trying to show you how much of something, so you would want a cart, all right? So if the size is wrong, things are blown up, they're big, then you need a cart to push it around, okay? That's a cartogram. If you look at it and you're like, what is that? Okay, that's a cartogram. Sometimes they'll be like boxes like this one, sometimes they'll be just like blown up bubbles, okay? But those are your 3 types of thematic maps. So on your quizzes, on your test, we'll show you something and you have to say, oh, that's a qualitative. Everything looks right and it's showing me data, so it's gotta be a qualitative, all right? If it has arrows, automatically no flow line. No questions about it, it's flow line, okay? If everything looks really weird, it's probably a cartogram. All right, this is a mental map. A mental map is like your image of something of it in your house. So like, you know, if your mom's like, hey, where'd you put the blah, blah, blah? And you're like, oh, well, it's in the playroom next to the, you know, TV or whatever. That's your mental map of where things are. So this is a mental map of Africa, like before the unit. They have the Sahara Desert, the Gobi Desert, which by the way is in China, and some different things here. So the country South Africa, the Red Sea. Okay, this is after they've studied Africa. Luckily, there's no more Gobi Desert. You still have Madagascar. They've drawn it a whole lot better. Okay, so a mental map's just how you see it. All right, so you look at this, what each country leads the world in: raspberries and nuclear weapons, Nobel laureates and getting killed by lawnmowers, which I'd like to say, do you know of other countries that, I mean, like in the US, it's a big deal to have a big sprawling lawn. You don't think of other countries in the world as big sprawling lawns, so it's kind of like an American thing. oil, FIFA World Cup titles, so things like that. Anyway, but what type of map is this? Okay, is it a physical or political? No, because the point is not to show us countries and it's not to show us physical features. Okay, so then it's got to be qualitative flow line cartogram. Are there arrows? Nope, so it can't be flow line. Is everything the right shape and size? Yeah. Okay, other than like natural distortions, yeah, so it can't be cartogram. So it's got to be qualitative because it's showing you information. Oh, let's get one. This is a qualitative map too. It's kind of just a goofy map. It's just showing you animals. This is just talking about how you would construct a map. So you go out, you do a field survey, you use this fancy dancy thing called the theodolite, which like it helps measure the curvature of the earth and the actual distance and angles and all that fancy stuff. So today when you're making maps, people are going to use all sorts of things. They're going to use pictures, they're going to use aerial photography, satellite images. Okay, and then this super dude in his awesome sexy sweater is going to sit in front of his like 1985 computer and he's going to come up with a map. So that's obviously a really old picture, but whatever. But that's how maps are made. They're going to use all sorts of information. The US is like remapped constantly. Geospatial technologies. We're going to go over a couple terms that you'll need to know and remember. The first is GPS. You should know GPS. Okay, this is in your phone. You're like, oh, you know, like where am I? Oh, I use my GPS. You use your GPS to drive. Like if you're like my brother, he can't, you know, he's 30 years old and he can't get anywhere without using his GPS to tell him how to get there. Okay, GPS was started in the Vietnam War. You had all these soldiers and they'd call in and be like, hey, you need to come get us because we're in this spot and we're next to these mountains. And so then the helicopters would fly there and wait a second, there's nobody there because they were wrong about where they were. All right, so the government said, look, we need to come up with something better so we can know exactly where people are. So now there's GPS, you can know exactly where you are. You can look on your phone and if you have signal, you can know, oh, I am in this particular spot. Like if I turn my GPS on, I could see I'm on this side of the school, I'm in my room. It wouldn't put me like across the building in Miss Presley's room or something like that. That's what GPS is. So you can track anything. You can track your runs, you can track, you know, sharks. It's Shark Week right now and they put the GPS trackers on sharks to see how they migrate through the oceans. Okay, it's done with 24 satellites. They roam the earth, they go over space and they send like back the little thing to say, hey, this is where you are, this is how far you are. Okay, this is then putting a GPS tracker on a big old turtle, okay, so they can track him. All right, then you have GIS. So GPS is your global position, your position on the earth, like where we're going to position you. GIS is your information, geographic information systems. Totally different things, totally different. Think of GIS as a layer of maps. So let's say you want to know where all of the dog parks are, but you also want to know where the Starbucks are because you want to stop at Starbucks before you go to the dog park because you might want a puppuccino and you might want a latte yourself. So you need a map of and y'all aren't old enough to drive, so you need the trails. So you're gonna need a map of dog parks, and then another layer would be the Starbucks, and then another layer would be like all the trails. So now you have all these things, so all these things are gonna come together and it's just information. That's all GIS is. You don't know what a satellite is, I'm assuming you do. They're all over space. Now, you think about like a satellite, how big they are. You know, they can be like as big as my classroom or much, much smaller. And you think, oh my gosh, they're like all over space. How do they not run into each other? Occasionally they do, but you have to think about how big space is. So even though they're big, they might be the size of a car, like these cars all out here are not that big. You couldn't even see them from, if you're here and you have a satellite, you know, that is over there or whatever, you probably couldn't even see it because it's still so far apart because we're talking about space, yo. Oh, see look, it's a satellite and they go all over the world. Okay, lots of different satellites. So let's say a hurricane's a coming and you see like a satellite image of a hurricane. That is a specific satellite. That is a GOES satellite. That's the whole purpose of the satellite, is just to look at weather. This is talking about remote sensing. So they like fly over and they test how much stuff is there, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so in class, we're gonna use a lot of types of tables, graph information, all that sort of stuff to say, oh, okay, well, let's look at a chart of how, like, I don't know, the religions in an area, okay? You could look at a pie chart to show the religions of a region, or you could look at a chart like this that would show you the age of people, or how long people are living, or the amount of people. You could look at all sorts of stuff. We will look at charts and graphs over and over and over again. Remember, that's one of the reasons why I said you need colored pencils. But with this being said, okay, so you need to know. Y'all have been looking at pie charts and graph bar charts, all sorts of stuff like that since you were in like kindergarten. So I know y'all know how to read them. This is a bar graph. You have to realize, like, it's showing you different things. So like this one right here, it's just showing you the years. So it's not saying that the purple team got all the way up to 100 points. It's saying points total. So team A got 5 points, team B got 82 points, and purple team or team C got 10 points. So you add them all up together. It's not saying like, you know, they've just like stacked them on top of each other. Come on. Graph, flow line. Lots of different types of research that people do. I think that's about it. Spatial perspective, I thought I took that off there. Okay, these are questions. Again, qualitative map. Dr. Pepper, better get it now. It's, you know, going away. There's a shortage. Okay, so we're done with that today. So you have a latitude and longitude worksheet to kind of refresh your mind, and for me to make sure that, hey, you're still getting latitude and longitude, so that I don't have to do another PowerPoint over it, which I'm totally fine with doing if you want me to. But anyway, if you have questions over this, or you want, you know, to be reminded or anything like that, watch it again, read your notes. But remember, these 3 types are very important. All right, qualitative flow line cartogram.